Jake Morrison felt the ship shake hard as it hit the atmosphere of the strange planet below. Red lights flashed everywhere in his small scout ship, and alarms made loud noises that hurt his ears. He grabbed the controls tight and tried to keep the ship steady, but nothing worked right anymore. The engines were dead and smoke filled the cabin. "Come on, hold together," Jake said to his ship as if it could hear him. He was a captain in the Earth Defense Forces and had been flying ships for 10 years, but he had never been in a crash this bad. His ship was small and fast, made for checking out new planets, not for fighting. Now it was falling toward an unknown world like a rock. The planet looked purple and green from space with 2 small moons hanging nearby. Jake had been sent here to see if anyone lived on this world and to check if it was safe for humans. The planet was called Zephyria on his maps, but nobody from Earth had ever been here before. It was far from human space and seemed empty. Jake held on tight as his ship hit the ground hard. Metal bent and glass broke everywhere. The ship slid across purple grass for a long way before it stopped against some tall crystal rocks that stuck up from the ground like giant teeth. Jake's head hit something hard and everything went dark for a while. When Jake woke up, his head hurt bad and blood ran down his face. The ship was quiet now except for small hissing sounds from broken pipes. He checked his body and found cuts and bruises, but nothing seemed broken. Jake was lucky to be alive. He looked around the broken ship. Most of his equipment was smashed, but he found his emergency pack with some food, water, and medical supplies. His radio was broken and would not send messages to other ships. The emergency beacon that should call for help was crushed under a big piece of metal. Jake was stuck on this alien world with no way to call home. Jake climbed out of his ship and looked around. The air smelled sweet like flowers, but different from any flowers on Earth. The grass under his feet was purple and soft. Strange trees grew nearby with silver bark that seemed to shine in the light from the sun. 2 suns, actually, one big and yellow like Earth's sun, and one smaller and more red. Crystal formations rose from the ground everywhere like a forest made of glass. Some were as tall as buildings, and they glowed with soft blue light. The sky was green instead of blue and had clouds that looked pink. Everything was beautiful but very alien. Jake had never seen a world like this one. Jake needed to find shelter and water. His ship would not fly again, and he only had enough water for a few days. He hoped someone would come looking for him, but it might take weeks or months. He had to survive until then. He walked away from his crashed ship to explore. The purple grass felt strange under his boots and made no sound when he stepped on it. Small flying things that looked like butterflies but had too many wings flew around the crystal trees. They glowed with the same blue light as the crystals. After walking for an hour, Jake found a stream of clear water running between the crystal formations. The water tasted good and seemed safe to drink. Jake filled his water bottles and felt a little better. At least he would not die of thirst. As he followed the stream, Jake saw something that made him stop and stare. In the distance was a building, made of the same crystal material as the formations but shaped by intelligent hands. It had tall spires and curved walls that caught the light and made rainbows. Someone had built this place. Jake felt excited, but also scared. If people lived on this world, maybe they could help him, but they might also be dangerous. He had weapons, but he hoped he would not need them. Jake had always believed that most people, even aliens, were good if you treated them right. He walked toward the crystal building carefully. As he got closer, he could see it was very old and covered with strange symbols carved into the walls. Some parts looked broken, like nobody had fixed them for a long time. Jake wondered what had happened to the people who built this place. Near the building, Jake heard a sound that made his blood turn cold. It was the sound of someone crying, but not human crying. The voice was higher and had a musical quality like singing. Someone was in pain. Jake moved closer to the sound. Behind the crystal building, he found a garden with plants that grew in, spiral shapes and flowers that changed colors. In the center of the garden was a pool of water that glowed with soft white light. Beside the pool lay a figure that looked like a person, but was not human. The being had pale skin that seemed to shimmer like oil on water, and long hair that was silver white. She was tall and thin with features that were beautiful but strange. Her eyes were larger than human eyes and completely black with no white parts. The alien woman was sick. Jake could see that right away. She shook with fever and her breathing was fast and shallow. Her skin had dark marks on it like bruises, and she was very weak. Jake's training as a soldier told him to be careful. This could be a trap. But his heart told him something else. This person needed help, and Jake could not just walk away from someone who was suffering. He approached slowly with his hands empty to show he meant no harm. The alien woman saw him and tried to move away, but she was too weak. Her black eyes were full of fear, but also hope. "It's okay," Jake said in a gentle voice, even though he knew she could not understand his words. "I want to help you." Jake knelt beside the alien woman and opened his emergency medical kit. He did not know if human medicine would work on an alien, but he had to try. The woman watched him with those strange black eyes as he cleaned her wounds and gave her water to drink. Something passed between them in that moment, something Jake could not explain. Without words or shared language, he felt her gratitude and desperate need. She was not just sick, she was dying, and somehow, Jake Morrison, a human soldier from a distant world, might be her only chance to live. 3 days passed since Jake found the sick alien woman by the glowing pool. He had made a shelter from pieces of his broken ship and had been taking care of her like she was his own sister. The medicine from his kit seemed to help her feel better. Her fever went down and she could sit up now. The alien woman had been trying to talk to him, but Jake could not understand her language. Her voice sounded like music with lots of high and low notes. Sometimes she would touch his hand, and Jake felt strange pictures in his mind, like someone was showing him movies but inside his head. On the 4th morning, something amazing happened. Jake was giving her water when she touched his forehead with her long fingers. Suddenly words appeared in his mind that he could understand. "Thank you," the voice in his head said. It was her voice, but speaking human words. "You saved my life." Jake almost dropped the water bottle. "You can talk to me now?" "I can share thoughts with you," she said without moving her lips. "My people have this gift. I have been learning your language from your mind while you cared for me." Jake felt amazed and a little scared. She had been reading his thoughts. "What's your name?" he asked. "I am Queen Lirelai of the Vallani people," she said. "And you are Jake Morrison, soldier of Earth." Jake could not believe it. He had been taking care of a queen this whole time. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty, I didn't know." Lirelai made a sound like laughing. "You do not need to call me that. You have shown me more kindness than many who serve in my palace." Over the next few days, Lirelai told Jake about her people through their strange mind connection. The Vallani had lived on this world for thousands of years. They were peaceful people who loved art and music and learning, but something terrible had happened to them. "We are dying," Lirelai explained as they sat by the glowing pool. "A sickness came to our world 5 years ago. It makes us weak, and our men cannot make babies anymore. We were once millions. Now we are less than 1,000. Jake felt sorry for her people. Where did this sickness come from? Lirelai's black eyes became sad. From the Korath Empire. They are a race of warriors who want our world for the crystal mines. They brought this plague to make us die slowly, so they could take everything without a fight. Jake felt angry when he heard this. Using sickness as a weapon was something that made him sick to his stomach. That's terrible. Can't you fight back? We are not fighters, Lirelai said. We have never made war. We do not know how to fight like the Korath do. Jake thought about this problem. He was just one human soldier, but maybe he could help somehow. I could teach you to fight. I know about war and weapons. Lirelai looked at him with surprise. You would do this for people you do not know? Good people should help each other, Jake said simply. That's what my mother taught me. Lirelai showed Jake to her city through the crystal forest. The Vallani city was beautiful, but sad. The crystal buildings were amazing, but many looked empty. Jake saw Vallani people in the streets, but they moved slowly like they were all sick. There were very few children. The Vallani people stared at Jake when they saw him. Most had never seen a human before. Some seemed scared, but others looked curious. Queen Lyrelay told them in their musical language that Jake was their friend. Jake met with the Vallani leaders in the Crystal Palace. They were old and tired-looking people who had watched their race dying for 5 years. At first they did not trust Jake or his ideas about fighting. "We are not animals," said an old Vallani man named Corvain. "We do not kill and destroy like savage races." "Sometimes you have to fight to protect what you love," Jake explained. "The Korath will kill all of you if you do nothing. Fighting back is not savage if you fight to save innocent people." Jake spent days teaching the younger Vallani how to use weapons and plan battles. They were smart and learned fast, but they did not like hurting things. Jake had to help them understand that sometimes violence was the only way to stop greater violence. During this time, Jake and Queen Lyrelay spent many hours together. She showed him Vallani art and music while he told her about Earth and human ways. Jake learned that Vallani could feel each other's emotions and share memories just by touching. It was a beautiful gift, but it also meant they felt all the sadness of their dying people. Jake found himself thinking about Queen Lyrelay more and more. She was not just beautiful in an alien way, she was also kind and smart and brave. She loved her people more than her own life. Jake had never met anyone like her, human or alien. One evening, they sat together watching the two suns set behind, the crystal formations. The sky turned many colors that Jake had never seen on Earth. "Why do you help us?" Lyrelay asked him through their mind connection. "You could try to fix your ship and leave this place," Jake thought about her question. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because I care about you and your people." Lyrelay looked at him with those deep black eyes. "I have lived for over 200 years, but I have never met someone with a heart like yours." Jake felt something warm grow in his chest when she said that. He was starting to have feelings for this alien queen that he did not fully understand. The Vallani scientists had been studying Jake's blood and body to see if they could learn something that might help their people. "What they found shocked everyone. Your blood fights our sickness," the chief scientist told Jake and Lyrelay. "The plague cannot live in your body. More than that, your genetic material might be able to mix with ours." Jake did not understand what this meant at first, but Lyrelay's face went very pale. "What does that mean?" Jake asked. The scientist looked nervous. "It means you might be able to help our race survive in a way we never imagined possible, but it would require great sacrifice from both of you." That night, Jake could not sleep. He walked in the crystal gardens thinking about what the scientist had said. He was just a simple soldier who had wanted to help sick people. Now he might be the key to saving an entire alien race. Lyrelay found him in the gardens. They did not speak with words or thoughts for a long time. They just sat together under the strange stars of her world. Finally, Lyrelay broke the silence. "I will not ask this of you," she said. "You have already given us so much." Jake looked at her beautiful, sad face. "What if I want to give more?" Before she could answer, alarms began sounding all over the city. Vallani guards came running with news that made Jake's blood turn cold. "The Korath fleet has been spotted near our world," the guard reported. "They will be here in days, not months, as we hoped." Jake stood up and felt his soldier training take over. "Then we better be ready for them." But deep down, Jake knew they were not ready. The Vallani had learned some fighting skills, but they were still peaceful people facing a race of born warriors. This was going to be the hardest battle of Jake's life. The Korath ships arrived like dark clouds covering the beautiful sky of Zephyria. Jake watched from the Crystal Palace walls as dozens of black warships moved into position around the planet. Each ship was 3 times bigger than anything humans had ever built, covered in weapons and armor. Jake had spent 2 weeks preparing the Vallani for this moment. They had learned to use energy weapons and had set up defensive positions around their city. But seeing the size of the enemy fleet made Jake's heart sink. There were thousands of Korath warriors up there, and less than 1,000 Vallani left, alive. "We cannot win against so many," said Corvain, the old Vallani leader. His voice shook with fear. "We don't have to win," Jake replied, checking his weapon. "We just have to make them pay so much that they decide it's not worth it." "Queen," Lyrelay stood beside Jake on the wall. Her black eyes looked up at the enemy ships with no fear, only sadness. "My people have never killed anyone," she said quietly. "Today that changes." Jake felt the weight of what he had done. He had taught these peaceful people how to fight, and now they would have to kill to survive. It felt wrong, but letting them all die would have been worse. The first Korath dropships came down like falling stars. They landed in the purple fields around the Crystal City and opened up to release hundreds of alien warriors. The Korath looked like giant insects walking, on two legs with 4 arms each. They carried weapons that shot red beams of energy. Jake had studied old battle reports about the Korath from human space. They were strong and mean and loved to fight. They took no prisoners and showed no mercy. Today there would be no talking, only fighting. "Remember what I taught you?" Jake spoke into his radio to all the Villani fighters. "Let them come to us. Use the crystals for cover and hit them from different angles. Work together and watch each other's backs." The battle began when the Korath charged toward the city. Jake had set up the defense using the natural crystal formations like a maze. The enemy had to come through narrow paths where the Villani could shoot at them from hidden positions. Jake took command of the main defensive line with 20 young Villani warriors. They had practiced this many times, but doing it for real was different. When the first Korath warrior fell to their weapons, several of the Villani got sick to their stomachs. "I know it feels bad," Jake told them as more enemies came at them. "But remember, they came here to kill everyone you love. You're protecting your families." The fighting was hard and scary. The Korath were strong, and their weapons could cut through crystal like it was paper. But Jake's plan worked. The narrow paths and hidden positions made it hard for the enemy to use their numbers. Queen Lyrale fought beside Jake with an energy rifle. She had never held a weapon before 2 weeks ago, but she was quick to learn. More importantly, she could use her mental powers to coordinate the Villani fighters without using radios that the enemy might hear. More coming from the east, Lyrale's voice spoke in Jake's mind. 50 of them moving toward the gardens." Jake smiled even though he was tired and hurt from fighting. "Tell Corvain's group to fall back to position 3. We'll hit them from both sides." The battle went on for hours. The Korath kept sending more warriors down from their ships, but the Villani held their ground. Jake was proud of how brave they were being. These people who had never fought before were standing up to one of the most dangerous armies in the galaxy. But Jake knew they could not hold out forever. His people were getting tired, and they were running out of ammunition. Worse, he could see more dropships getting ready to launch from the Korath fleet. During a break in the fighting, Jake found himself alone with Queen Lyrale in one of the crystal chambers they were using as a command post. Both of them were dirty and tired from battle. "How many more can we stop?" Lyrale asked. Jake looked at the tactical display showing enemy positions. "Maybe one more wave if we're lucky. After that..." He did not finish the sentence. Lyrale moved closer to him. "I want you to know something before we die today." "We're not going to die," Jake said, but he was not sure he believed it. "Jake Morrison," she said, using both his names like Villani did when they were being serious. "In these weeks since you came to our world, you have given us something we had lost: hope. You have shown us that there are good people in the universe who will fight for others even when they get nothing in return." Jake felt his face get warm. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Lyrale said, reaching out to touch his face with her long fingers. "You did what you would do. You are special, Jake Morrison." Before Jake could respond, something happened. That surprised them both. Lyrale kissed him. It was not like a human kiss, but something softer and more gentle. When their lips touched, Jake felt her emotions flow into his mind through her telepathic abilities. He felt her love and gratitude, and something deeper that made his heart beat faster. Jake had kissed girls before, but never like this. Never with someone who could share their feelings directly with his mind. He felt how much Queen Lyrale cared for him, and he realized he cared for her the same way. "Lyrale," Jake whispered her name. "I know we are different species," she said. "I know this seems impossible, but what I feel for you is real." Jake pulled her closer. "What I feel for you is real, too." They held each other in the crystal chamber while the sounds of war continued outside. Jake knew this might be their last moment together, and he did not want to waste it. What happened next felt natural. even though it should have been impossible. Jake and Queen Lyrelay came together not just as two people who cared for each other, but as two souls who had found something special in the middle of darkness. Their love was beyond human or Vallani. It was something new. Later, when they heard the alarms calling them back to battle, Jake felt different, stronger somehow. Lyrelay looked different too, like she was glowing with inner light. "Whatever happens now," she said, "we face it together." The final wave of Korath warriors was the biggest yet. Hundreds of them came charging through the crystal maze toward the city center. Jake and his Vallani fighters fell back position by position, making the enemy pay for every step. Jake found himself fighting side by side with people who had become like family to him. Old Corvain wielding an energy sword with surprising skill. Young Vallani warriors who moved like dancers even in battle. And Queen Lyrelay, who fought with the courage of someone protecting everything she loved. The battle reached the main plaza of the Crystal City. Jake's forces were down to less than 100 fighters against twice that many Korath. It looked hopeless. Then something unexpected happened. Jake heard the roar of engines overhead, but they were not Korath engines. Human ships broke through the atmosphere and began attacking the enemy fleet. "Jake Morrison, this is Commander Lisa Patterson of the Earth Defense Forces," a voice crackled over his damaged radio. "We got your distress signal. Sorry we're late. To the party." Jake could not believe it. Somehow his emergency beacon had worked after all, sending out a signal that took weeks to reach human space. A rescue fleet had come looking for him. The arrival of human ships turned the battle around. The Korath found themselves fighting on two fronts, and their advantage in numbers disappeared. Within hours, the surviving Korath warriors were retreating. Back to their ships, Jake and Queen Lyrelay stood together watching the enemy fleet leave their world. They had won, but the cost had been high. Many brave Vallani had died defending their home. "Your people came for you," Lyrelay said, watching the human ships land near the city. Jake nodded but felt strange inside. He was happy to see his fellow humans, but he also felt torn. This world had become his home, and these people had become his family. "Will you go back with them?" Lyrelay asked quietly. Jake looked at her beautiful face and felt his heart break a little. "I don't know." Commander Lisa Patterson was a tough woman with short red hair and sharp green eyes. She had served with Jake for 3 years and knew him better than most people. When she saw him walking toward the human landing site with Queen Lyrelay beside him, she could tell something big had changed. "Captain Morrison," she said with a smile when Jake reached her ship, "you look like you've been through hell." "Something like that," Jake replied. He felt strange talking in human language again after weeks of using Vallani mind speech with Lyrelay. Lisa looked at Queen Lyrelay with curiosity and a little suspicion. "So this is the alien queen you've been fighting alongside, Commander Patterson." "This is Queen Lyrelay of the Vallani people," Jake said formally. "She saved my life, and I've been helping her people survive." Lyrelay bowed her head in the human way Jake had taught her. "Your soldier brought hope to my dying world," she said, in careful English words she had learned from Jake's mind. Lisa was impressed that the alien queen could speak their language. "Jake has a habit of getting involved in other people's problems. Usually it gets him in trouble." Over the next few days, Lisa and her team learned about the situation on Zephyria. The Vallani were still dying from the plague the Korath had brought to their world. Even though they had won the battle, there were still less than 800 Vallani left alive. "We could set up a medical station," Lisa suggested to Jake as they walked through the Crystal City. "Our doctors might find a cure for their sickness." Jake nodded, but his mind was on other things. He had not told Lisa about his relationship with Queen Lyrelay or about what the Vallani scientists had discovered about his blood. Some secrets felt too big to share right away. That evening, Jake met with Queen Lyrelay in her private chambers in the Crystal Palace. The room was beautiful, with walls that glowed softly and furniture made from shaped crystal. But Jake could see sadness in Lyrelay's black eyes. "Your people want you to come home," she said without using words, speaking directly into his mind. "They're worried about me," Jake replied the same way. It felt more natural now than talking with his voice. "They think I've been alone on a hostel. world for too long. Lyrelay walked to a window that looked out over her damaged city. Many buildings were broken from the battle, and there were still scorch marks on the crystal walls. Perhaps they are right. This is not your world, and we are not your people. Jake felt a sharp pain in his chest when she said that. Don't say that. You know that's not true. Before Lyrelay could respond, her chief advisor Corvain entered the chamber. The old Villani looked more tired than usual, and his face was grave. "My queen," he said in the musical Villani language, "we have received urgent news from our scientists." Jake listened as Corvain explained in words that Lyrelay translated for him through their mental link. The news was both wonderful and terrifying. "The tests are complete," Lyrelay told Jake. "Your genetic material has not only helped cure some of our people of the plague, but it has restored fertility to our females. More than that." She stopped talking and her face went very pale. "What is it?" Jake asked. Lyrelay looked at him with wide eyes. "I am with child Jake Morrison. Your child." Jake felt like someone had hit him in the stomach. He sat down hard on one of the crystal chairs and tried to process what she had said. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Humans and aliens can't—" "Apparently we can," Lyrelay said quietly. "The scientists say our DNA is more compatible than anyone imagined. They think it might be because both our species evolved from similar genetic roots millions of years ago." Jake stared at her, trying to understand what this meant. He was going to be a father. The child would be half human and half Villani. Something that had never existed before. "How do you feel about this?" Jake asked. Lyrelay placed her hand on her stomach where no change could be seen yet. Scared, happy, confused, all at the same time. Jake stood up and went to her. "We'll figure this out together," but figuring it out was not going to be easy. When Jake told Commander Patterson about the situation, she was shocked and concerned. "Jake, do you understand what you're talking about?" Lisa said as they stood outside the human ships. "You're saying you're having a baby with an alien queen. Do you know what this means for your career? For Earth's relationship with this species?" "I know it's complicated," Jake said. "Complicated?" Lisa shook her head. "Jake, this could start a war or end your military career or get you locked up for study. Humans have never successfully bred with an alien species before." Jake had thought about all these problems, but he also thought about Queen Lyrelay alone and pregnant with his child. "What would you do, Lisa, if it was someone you loved?" Lisa looked at him for a long time. "I'd probably do the same stupid thing you're thinking about doing." The news about Queen Lyralay's pregnancy spread quickly through both the human and Villani communities. The reactions were mixed and strong. Some of the Villani were excited because the child might carry genetic keys that could save their entire species. Others were worried that mixing their pure bloodline with alien DNA was wrong and dangerous. The human soldiers had different concerns. Some thought Jake was a hero who had made a breakthrough in human-alien relations. Others thought he had lost his mind and gotten involved with things he did not understand. "The Earth Council is going to want answers," Lisa told Jake privately. "They're sending a science team and some diplomats. This is bigger than just you and the Queen now." Jake knew she was right, but he was tired of other people making decisions about his life. He had found something special with Queen Lyrelay, and he was not going to let politics or fear destroy it. 3 weeks after the battle, Queen Lyrelay began showing signs of her pregnancy. Villani pregnancies were different from human ones and moved faster. The scientists said the baby would be born in about 4 months instead of 9. Jake spent his days learning about Villani culture and helping to rebuild the damaged city. He also worked with the human medical team to understand more about the hybrid child growing inside Queen Lyrelay. "The baby appears to have characteristics of both species," Dr. Martin Chen explained as he showed Jake the scan results. "Stronger, bones like humans, but the enhanced brain development of Villani. If this child survives, it could be the start of something entirely new." At night, Jake would sit with Queen Lyrelay and feel the baby moving inside her. Through her telepathic abilities, he could sometimes sense the child's presence. It felt warm and bright, like a small star growing stronger every day. "What kind of world are we bringing this child into?" Lyrelay asked one evening as they watched the stars through the crystal dome of her palace. Jake took her hand and felt her love and worry through their connection. A world where different people can come together and create something beautiful. That's what we did, isn't it? Yes, she agreed. But will others see it that way? Before Jake could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the city. But these were not battle alarms. These were the signals that meant ships were arriving. Jake and Queen Lyreley hurried to the Palace Communications Center, where they learned that a large fleet of Earth ships had just entered the Zephyria system. Not rescue ships or medical vessels, but heavy cruisers and battleships. The Earth Council has decided this situation requires direct intervention, came a transmission from the lead ship. All human personnel are to report for immediate evacuation and debriefing. Jake felt his heart sink as he realized what this meant. Earth's government had decided that his relationship with Queen Lyreley and their unborn child was too dangerous to ignore. They were coming to take him home whether he wanted to go or not. The Earth Council ships landed like metal mountains on the purple fields outside the Crystal City. Jake watched from the palace walls as hundreds of soldiers, scientists, and diplomats came marching toward Queen Lyreley's home. He had never felt so small and powerless in his life. Admiral Robert Kane was the man in charge of the Earth Fleet. Jake knew him by reputation as a tough military leader who followed orders and expected others to do the same. When Kane walked into the Crystal Palace with 20 armed guards, Jake knew this was not going to be a friendly conversation. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Kane said in a voice like cold metal, "you've caused quite a stir back home." "Sir, I was following my duty to help people in need," Jake replied, standing at attention like a good soldier. Kane looked around the beautiful crystal chamber where they were meeting. Queen Lyreley sat on her throne with several Villani advisors beside her. She looked calm, but Jake could feel her worry through their mental connection. "Your duty was to scout this world and report back," Kane said. "Instead, you got involved in a local war, shared human military secrets with aliens, and apparently started a romantic relationship with their queen." Jake felt his face get hot with anger, but he kept his voice steady. These people were dying. "From a biological weapon, I helped them defend themselves against genocide. That was not your decision to make," Kane snapped. "And now we hear that this alien queen is pregnant with your child. Do you have any idea what kind of problems this creates?" Before Jake could answer, Queen Lyreley stood up from her throne. Even pregnant, she moved with the grace and dignity of someone born to lead. "Admiral Kane," she said in perfect English, "Captain Morrison saved my people from extinction. He has shown us that humans can be honorable allies. Why do you speak of this as if it were a crime?" Kane looked at her with the expression of someone who had never expected to argue with an alien queen. "Your Majesty, with respect, this situation goes beyond personal feelings. A hybrid child between our species could have effects we don't understand." "What effects do you fear?" Queen Lyreley asked. Kane gestured to one of his scientists, a thin man with nervous eyes. "Dr. Williams, explain your concerns." "Your Majesty," the scientist said, clearly uncomfortable, "a hybrid child might carry genetic combinations that could be dangerous. We don't know if such a being would be stable or what abilities it might have." Queen Lyreley placed her hand on her growing belly. "You speak of my unborn child as if it were a weapon. We're speaking of it as an unknown factor," Kane said firmly, "which is why Captain Morrison and you must come with us for proper medical study and evaluation." Jake felt something cold and angry rise up inside him. "You're not taking her anywhere." Kane turned to look at Jake with surprise. "Excuse me, Captain?" "I said, you're not taking her anywhere," Jake repeated, stepping closer to Queen Lyreley. "She's not a prisoner, and neither am I." "You're a soldier in the Earth Defense Forces," Kane said. "You follow orders." Jake looked at Admiral Kane, then at Queen Lyreley, then at the Villani people who had become his friends and family. He made a decision that would change his life forever. "No, sir," Jake said quietly. "I resign my commission." The room went completely silent. Admiral Kane's face turned red with anger while Queen Ly